Even at the church level, at the government level, you make decisions all over. Okay? And you remember that when you are doing this at a small level, at your level, at a family level, at a business level, that is microeconomics. But at a bigger level, it's macro. Now, it is about resources. In economic systems, we study how those resources are managed and distributed. By economic systems, we mean how those resources are managed, owned, and distributed. So we are talking about management. So we have resources, how these are managed, owned, and distributed. Why are we talking about this? Why do we bother about who owns and manages? Because if you are to make a decision, you have to know who is responsible about this allocation of these scarce resources. So who owns them? Who manages them? Who will determine how those resources are allocated. Remember, the resources are limited. What you need to do, massive. You have a whole long list, even you as a student, you have a long list of things that you want in life. But the resources for you to do that are limited. Now, it is very important to know who has got the power over those resources. Is it you or somebody else? So this idea about who is managing, who is owning the resources that you have to decide on is very important. So in an economy, you also have issues about who manages and owns these resources. Now, if you remember, when we were doing production, what are the factors of production? Those are the resources that you have. You remember, I think initially I talked about a family having children and a piece of land. Okay, so what did we say? We said the resources that are available for that family is that land and family members. That's what they have as resources at their disposal. So now they have to use those resources to meet their wants. And what are their wants and what are their needs? We said it was food, clothing, shelter. So they have to find these or provide for these from the resources that they have. So they will divide maybe that land into food production, some part into cash production for selling, so that they can have money to buy clothing, they can have money to build a house. So basically, they are using that limited resource to meet their needs. Now we are talking about how are those resources. In this case, the land and the labor they have, the family members they have, who owns them, who controls them. Okay, so we have a number of ways that this is done, or we can make some categories about this, about the ownership and management of resources. So, one is called market system, management and distribution. So the market system is usually referred to also as capitalism. That's one system. What do we mean by market system or capitalism? We mean the resources are directed to their use by the market. Remember what I said about the market? What is a market? What is a market? Not the traditional way of defining what a market is. Remember, the traditional way of viewing a market is where buyers and sellers meet. And usually, traditionally, or in the everyday language, we refer to it as a place, a physical place. That's why you say, ndupita ku market. Unapita ku market kuti, ya market ya ku town. Basically, what we are saying is, this is a place where buyers and sellers are meeting. A place where buyers and sellers are meeting. But these days, it's no longer like that. Because these days, you don't have to meet to buy or to sell. Remember, this technology we have here, we have now, has not been there all the time. So if you are talking of maybe 20 or 30 years ago, there were no mobile phones, there was no internet. Sometimes we take it for granted that there was always internet. There was always mobile phone. No, there were always computers and laptops, and no, these are very recent things. When I was graduating in 1981, I started work. Okay? I started work, and there were no computers. No computers at all. We used to handwrite if we wanted to write a letter, and then take it for somebody to type it. So there were these typewriters, you know, they would punch, put a paper there and start punching. Okay? Then they bring it to you to check. You make some corrections, it goes back, they make some changes. And then they take that and you sign it, it goes to the post office. You have to wait several weeks for a response. Life was not as easy as you look at it now. So the market at that time was defined as a place where buyers and sellers meet, but now it is not. Okay? But in economics, our market, because it's a place where buyers and sellers meet. So in economics, this is our market. These are buyers. These are sellers. So this is a market. So this market, where you have buyers and sellers, is supposed to allocate these scarce resources. So in a free market, you own and manage these factors of production, these resources. When I'm saying factors of production, remember the example I gave you of a family. So the factors of production for this family is that land they have and these family members they have. So they have the land and the labor. They own those resources. They are the factors of production. So in a market system, the one who is doing this, owns and decides. You manage. So you allocate them based on what? In this case, how are you allocating resources in this market where you have prices and quantity? Quantities you buy or quantities you supply are based on what? Price. So in a market system, the price mechanism is now guiding you where you should allocate your resources. So for example, you're a producer, you're a supplier, and the prices go up for, let's say you were producing beans and Nandoro for sale. So you find prices for beans going down and the prices for Nandoro going up. What will you do? What will you do? Huh? Yeah, you will say, let me go where the prices are good. So you, instead of maybe your piece of land, if you had kakota for beans, quota for Nandoro, you will probably do 3/4 Nandoro and maybe very little beans. Why? The market is telling you. Resources is being guided by the market. But what is also important is that you have the decision. You are the one who is making the decision. You are owning those resources. So you make the decisions. So the resources are owned by private sector. When we say private sector, we mean you and me, not government. By private individuals. That's the major. The major thing is about who owns and manages and distributes these resources. So in a market system or capitalism is where all these resources are managed and owned by the private individuals, not government. Government is not coming in to tell you what to grow, for example, to tell you what to sell, to tell you where you should put your resources. You make the decisions. You own and manage these resources. The private individuals, private sector. So what could be the opposite? No. Remember, owned and managed by private individuals. So the opposite should be owned by government, right? Socialism is not. So it's either you say communism stroke command economic system or command economy. So that's another system where you as an individual does not own anything. You don't own the land. You can't own the land. You can't control how the land is used. Remember, here you could control whether you should put more land to Nandoro versus Beans. You had that opportunity, you had that liberty. But in a command or communism, you don't. The government does. So all land is owned by government. All providers, all companies, if there are any companies, they are owned by government. So the factors of production are owned by government. And they decide how to allocate these resources. They will decide how to distribute these resources. That's a command. They plan everything. So command, sometimes they will say planned economy. You will find different variations, but we are talking about this kind of economic system where individuals have no right to ownership of anything. You don't. So schools are all owned by government. Hospitals are all owned by government. Name anything is owned by government. No individuals. Houses are owned by government. So you are just given a house. You just live in a house which is government owned. The land where you are growing anything is owned by government. So you go to school, a government school, you graduate, you don't pay anything. You are an engineer, you'll be working on the roads, construction of roads and blah, blah, blah. You graduate as a teacher, you'll be at a government, teaching at a government school. And normally, you don't have salaries. In a strict sense, you don't. Remember, when we say the factors of production, these resources are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Okay? And we said, remember, these factors are paid something. They don't offer these services for free. So for example, if you don't have them, you can hire them. Okay? So if you don't have the land, you want to use somebody else's land, you pay for it. You can hire it. So here you have to pay rent. Here you have to pay wages. Here you have to pay interest. Here you have to be given profit. So these factors, they earn something. But if you don't own them, Why should you be paid? So if even the labor is owned by government and the government is using it, who do they pay? So in this system, you can be a teacher. You'll be teaching at a government school. Government will provide you a house. All the needs that you want, they will try to provide them to you. Okay? Food. You have a warehouse where maybe every Tuesday you are getting rice and beans and whatever. Mukarandira kandi sugar kandi chani ni bread mukarandira. The bread is being produced at a factory which is owned by government. And hogwira kunchito kumene koko sikuti akurandira ya. The flour which is going there, the many mwalima as a community. So those who do not have anything, they will every day go ndi makasu wao kukalima munda wa wose. That land belongs to everybody, to government. So those who do not have any skill, they will be every day they will be waking up going to that garden. Akakolola zopita ku warehouse ali yesa kurandira. So you are living a life where things are provided for you. Kamufuna sopo yochapira akakupasana. Muzikarandira. That's a very strict way of looking at it. Of course, there are variations. So some will get tokens to buy what they want. Mashopu so ndi aboma. There's no private grocery. These supermarkets are government owned. You can have a token, yes, and collect the things there. Token has been given to you by government. So you can, there are certain things that you want to eat or to buy. So that token, you have a choice now to choose what package you want equivalent to that token. So this is a situation where government is controlling everything. Today, it's very difficult to find this system. Okay? Even though maybe North Korea, to some extent China, yeah, but it's dead. It's no longer there. Because even in China now, they still have some of it, but not in this strict sense that I have described. Okay? So the third one is where you have both, which is called socialism. This is where you have both. So you allow individuals to own land as well as government own land. So socialism basically is more about distribution. Ownership can be mixed, but you spend a lot of effort, the government spends a lot of effort in making sure that the earnings are distributed. The earnings are distributed fairly, or to take care of those who are less privileged. So you distribute some of the profit, for example, that these people are making. How does the government do that? How can the government distribute those who are making too much money to make sure it goes to those who don't have? Yes. Yes. You tax the rich, get the money that they have made in profits, take it and provide for the poor. So you are distributing it. You are redistributing it. So the socialists here, they have private and government on and distribute and manage factors of production on resources. So when I'm saying resources, basically I'm talking about factors of production, the means of production. When we say factors of production, some people can say means of production. How do you produce? So the means are the things that you use to produce. So the means of production, means, not meaning, but means. Okay, I hope you get me, right? The means of production, the ways of producing. So this one is very similar to a mixed economy. So sometimes some people, it's very similar, mixed economy. Okay? So there you have a situation where you have government schools, private schools. You have government hospitals, private hospitals. You can have public roads, private roads. I know maybe you may not have heard so much about a road being private. You can. So for example, you may have a big farm and you have constructed a road to your farm with your own resources. Well, that's your private road. You can control who uses it. Okay? So you can have both private things, privately owned, you own them, and they can live side by side with somebody who, with something which is owned by government. Okay? Let us look at other extremes. So number 4, you have what is called fascism. Fascism, unlike communism or socialism, is a system where you run the economy based on an idea or a character. So For example, you may have an idea that of patriotism or an agenda to achieve something. National interest, for example. We are doing this for national interest. So in most cases, this kind of system, the resources are allocated based on this idea, not on the market forces, not because of communism or planned or socialism, but it's based on an ideology. So in most cases, this is where you get, for example, personality issues. Here, I mean, for example, you have dictators, you have some kind of cut. So you have a situation, for example, what you had sometime, I think, around the First and Second World Wars, where you had people like Adolf Hitler, people believed in him, Joseph Stalin, people believed in them, and they could die for them. The whole nation, whatever they said, people followed religiously. No doubt of the capability of this person to take us somewhere. So when you have such people, people will rally around them. So their decision making is not based on anything else, but on the ideas of this, what this guy is trying to drive you towards. If he can tell you that from now onwards you'll be eating 3 times a day, you believe it. Or don't do this and you'll believe it. These guys, they will develop an idea and sell it to you, and you believe it as if there is ngatikuti ka murungu kena kakeso. No, it's like they become like a semi-god, and they can drive you to where they want, whether rightly or wrongly. So it's mainly linked to personalities as well. Have you seen this kind of thing recently? I fear it myself as well. Has it ever happened in Malawi, where people were or are almost being driven to something that they really don't know, but just because they believe in a person? See, so it can be dangerous. That's why we had those wars. Because when people are their belief is so strong, they can go and die for that person or for that idea. So they will be prepared to go to war. That's why in Germany, if you remember how the First World War came and the Second World War, it's because of these things. the church hills of UK and the Adolf Hitlers of Germany. Exciting your people, driving them towards something. You can have that kind of economic system as well, where everybody is rallying behind something. Okay? Then you have a situation which is, there's a, you will not read about what I'm going to say much in the books. Maybe one or two authors might tell you that there is this other variation of an economic system. This is about the Nordic socialism. This is about the Nordic countries, which is Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and partly Finland. These Nordic countries, they have their own variation. It's a Nordic socialism in the sense that you have both ownership of resources by government as well as ownership of resources by private sector. But in this system, the government has a lot of power in redistribution. So you have a mixed ownership, but government has a huge hand in redistributing these resources. So in the Nordic countries, very little private schools are there, very few. Very few private hospitals are there. Mostly government owned. But the private sector is allowed. There's a little bit of private sector, for example, in the social services. The social services, unlike in the mixed economy, where you can have maybe half universities are private, half universities are government, in their system, you'll be talking of maybe 90% hospitals are in government hands. Education is in government hands. And they make sure that everybody has access to these social services. So education, health, water, and things like that. They are all heavily controlled by government. Now, you can have a company, but once you make a profit, they will take away more than half. So in Denmark, for example, where I lived for 3 years, I know the system very well. In Denmark, minimum tax is 48%. Minimum. On your salary. Okay? So if you earn 100,000, they will take 48,000 away from you. Okay? The highest, if you are paid a lot of money, you pay 72%. I was trying to complain when I lived there, and everybody was like, "Hey, Preston, why are you complaining? You're getting everything for government gives as a lot of things. So people there are so happy. If you go on what we call world development indicators, look at an indicator called happiness index. They are amongst the top 4 in the world, happiest people in the world. And yet these are the taxes they pay. But you know what? What you get in return? You have free education for your children. From the time they are born, let me explain to you what they use that money for. When you are born, from the day you are born, because 2 of my kids were born there, when you are born, the first day you are born, the nurses come to your house every day, especially for those people who have never had children before. The nurse will be coming to your house every day to help you birth the kid, to help you take care of the kid. They will be doing that every day. Okay? And when the kid is born, the parents will be getting quarterly funds. Whether you are rich or poor, they don't discriminate. So they will come to your house whether you are rich or poor. You'll be getting money every 3 months for that kid. Whether you are rich or poor, there's a fixed amount. For every child who has been born, they start getting that money until they're 18. Until they're 18 years old. That money goes to the parents to look after them. Okay? From daycare, so 3 months, you have the mom or the dad wants to go back to work, because their leave, maternity leave and paternity leave is the same amount. So the mother can get 3 months paternity leave. The father can also get 3 months paternity leave. You are all equal parents. There's millimeter democracy in terms of looking after the kid. Okay? So apart from these things, if you are fired from your job, okay, the government will give you 90% of your previous salary until you find another job. Okay? You see? So, but maximum they can look after you on that pay is 2 years. If after 2 years you don't find another job, they will give you a job. Now, wait, that job they will give you normally is demeaning. So nobody wants to be in that situation. Okay? Because they have public swimming pools everywhere in town. They have a lot of parks, like public parks. Okay? Like gardens and parks and the like. You may be an engineer and you were fired. They were giving you 90% of your salary for the past 2 years. Now you can't find a job. They will ask you to be cleaning the parks. They will ask you to be cleaning the public toilets. Okay? So nobody wants to, yeah, so people, and it's shameful. So people will still want to find a job. Okay? Looking after your child is free. For example, at 3 months old, the child starts going to daycares for free. And so what they have is they have families who volunteer, who are paid by government to look after other people's children who are going to school. So they will train them. So each family might have maybe 3-5 children. So within the locality, you can choose which family you want to deposit your kid in the morning when you want to go to work. When you come back, you pick them up. The food there is provided by government. That person is being paid by government. I can start. This story is so long. I think maybe I should stop there. But they get a lot of things for free. So in terms of your medical care, the medical care is excellent. For that tax you are paying, okay? So everybody has got a dentist. The dentist always sends you a note every 3 months to check your teeth. The eye specialist gives you a notification in your mail for eye checkup every 6 months. Now, if your kid is sick or if you are sick, you call a number. Within 3-5 minutes, a doctor will be knocking at your door with all yeah, I experienced it. My daughter was having a high temperature, and so when we called, within 3 minutes, the doctor was knocking at the door. If you need hospital, they will arrange hospital for you. But otherwise, everybody has got a doctor, and you have a list of doctors which you can choose from. So usually it depended on which street you live. So these doctors, private doctors, they have their own private practice, but they don't charge people. Okay? So you are not, the doctor is not working at the hospital, has opened his own clinic. People around will be given to him, or people can choose which doctor they want to. Okay? But when you go there, you get treated, that guy sends a bill to government to be paid, not you paying. Okay, that's and then you get a prescription there. You go to the pharmacy. The pharmacies are owned by individuals. Companies are owning pharmacies, but they don't receive money from you. So you get a prescription from your doctor. You go to this pharmacy, private pharmacy. They give you the medication. They send the bill to government to be paid. Okay, but if they make profit, I'm a chosa, you know. So it's basically to make life for everybody. You don't find a lot of poor people. Tell me, share what you are trying to share with your friend. Huh? Maybe it's a nice story. Huh? You don't want to share? Okay. So that's the system. It's a very different kind of socialism. You are allowed to make money, but the government will take it away, huge, and then provide services for everybody. There are no private buses. There are no minibuses. It's buses all owned by government. Okay, but they are excellently punctual. So at each bus stop, you find there's a timetable. So it will show that a bus from here to Likuni is passing here every 10 minutes, and it's every 10 minutes. There's no delay. And yet it's a government bus. You pay. Okay? Trains, the same thing. So they provide everything for you for the money that they take from you. So it's a heavy distributed. This is only in these countries, not many. No, you don't get it. This system, you don't get it elsewhere. That's why I like to put it as different kind of socialism. You don't find it anywhere else. Okay? Okay, so lastly, is what we call traditional. Traditional economic system. Traditional economic system is based on culture, norms, and traditions. It's not based on money. In the traditional economic system, the ownership of resources and distribution of resources is based on norms, culture, and traditions. So what happens there, people are living based on, for example, hunting, growing something, basically. Correcting is this system is not based on money. It's based on survival. And usually, these resources are based on a group, or tribe or community. So you find things just for survival. You get things for survival. You gather things for survival. You hunt, you fish for survival of the group based on your culture and traditions. You don't care much about resources. Okay? So the group has to survive. Your tribe has to survive. Your community has to survive. So this kind of system, you are not talking of supermarkets. You are not, what you depend on is exchange with another group, for example. So you have, maybe you grow a lot of cacheveres, you can go and exchange with rice with another group. These issues of money and supermarkets and blah blah are not there. Okay? So it's based on beliefs, traditions in your community. And you can see that even when it comes to powers and things like that, are all based on culture and tradition. Are there advantages there or disadvantages of having a traditional system, economic system? Are there taxes there? Yeah, maybe. Ukapeleka zina zake kwa mfumu. Now, one thing that I want you to do some reading about is this thing. Market system or capitalism. If we say government has no control, because in this system, in the market system, all things, all resources are owned, managed, distributed by private individuals, by the market. Okay? And some people say America, for example, is a good example of a country that is following capitalism, which is not true, completely true. Because in America too, you have hospitals which are owned by government. You have, some education institutions are owned by government. So even in America, they have a mixed system. They have both private and public ownership. Okay? Now, assuming that the government has no control on resources, on means of production, what would be the role of government? What would be the role of having a government? They don't control anything. Individuals do the allocation. What would be the role of government in such a situation? Nothing. So why do they go to elect? Why do they go for elections to have a government? Asitayasa question. Why? Why should they go and why should you for example, you have just been seeing in the newspapers that they are going for elections in November. They will choose between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. That's what we have heard. So why should they have a government? I think we control the vice president. Huh? I want you to go and read about this. Come up with some good points. Why this is, what is the role of government? Siju kupanga bwanji. Shaonesa? Okay, so I can think of a few things why you still need government. So you can imagine that if everybody was free to do what they want to do, what would happen in a community, in the economy? So I want to set up a factory and I can do it anywhere. I can go in the middle of the road and build my house there. Okay? Or I can drive to city center using reverse all the way.